What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Johnny Mack here. Just wanted to give you a heads up that if you are looking for a community that is open to discussion as far as mentorship, conservation, the wild, becoming a better person, and all of that, there is a group for you on Facebook, and it is called Soul Seekers. Soul Seekers, we are all about making ourselves a better person. We're all about making sure hunting lasts for generations to come and encouraging people to get plugged in. Whether you are someone who has something to give or someone who needs to soak it up like a sponge, this is a community for you, and I strongly encourage you that if you're on Facebook to join Soul Seekers, and if you're not on Facebook, hop on there just for that group. It is only going to be as powerful as we all make it. And so just remember that life happens for you, it doesn't happen to you, and that you can't outgive good. You can't outgive good, people. I want you to understand that, and I want you to believe it, because when we believe that and we lead with courage and we lead with intention, lives are changed, lives are transformed, just like on this podcast, transformation through primal adventure. Be blessed. Enjoy this episode. Talk soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters, both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by T&K Hunting Gear. If you haven't heard about T&K, then it's about time you do. I've been using T&K gear out in the field and on hunts and have fallen in love with their stuff. T&K is veteran-owned and 100% made in America using only American-made products. All their gear is covered under a lifetime warranty with no questions asked. If it breaks or fails, they will fix it or replace it for free. T&K is your resource for bino harnesses, bow slings, and a lot more amazing gear. For more information about T&K hunting gear, go to tnkhunting.com or search for them on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Freedom on and stay soulful. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by the Crazy Elk Company. Based out of the state of Washington with products made in America, they are providing solutions with gear to problems you didn't even know you had. Their tag wallet is one of those solutions, and I had the pleasure of using it on all of my hunts this last year, and it is now a mainstay in my kill kit. The tag wallet is a water-resistant zippered pouch that comes with its own reusable zip ties to safely and securely store your notch tag for quick and easy access. For more information, go to crazyelkcompany.com and use the code SOULFUL with a capital S to save 20% at checkout. Be blessed, everyone, and as always, stay soulful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today I got just a wonderful episode with someone who I have developed a relationship with over this last year, and I met at the Western Hunt Expo in Salt Lake City, and that is Brandon Schrader, the product manager for apparel at Vortex Optics, and just a solid individual. And if you ever caught the, the Soul Seeker Badlands film that we submitted to the film festival, he even had a cameo in there as a slight appearance. So if you go back and watch that video and you see a quick clip of me talking to somebody else and there's a Vortex booth in the background, you'll see Brandon's face, or at least the outline of his profile. And so, Brandon, thanks for joining for an episode, man. How you doing?
Dude, it's a pleasure to be here. This is awesome. Thank you so much. This is actually my first official podcast I've done outside of Vortex. So to be on the show here with you, it's awesome. So thank you.
Oh, man, my pleasure. You know, one of the things that this podcast is all about is about building community, about creating space for others to expand. And in this world, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't have experiences in things that you don't have experiences. And so how do you end up getting to that? You get out of your comfort zone. You get out of this protective bubble that people like to like shroud themselves in. It's like, oh, I don't know. That may make me feel uncomfortable. I don't know. It makes me nervous. And it's like, dude, at the end of the day, if you want to grow as a human being, you have to do things that put you in a position of discomfort or challenge
Mhm.
you in any way, because that is how growth happens. So, this doesn't speak to you about not being on any other podcast, other than I just love the concept of how courageous you were. I was like, "Hey, Brandon, you want to hop on a podcast?" You're like, "Heck yeah, let's roll, bro."
Yeah, no, I am ready to be uncomfortable, J-Mac.
Heck yeah. Woo. Well, that's how the transformation through primal adventure happens here at the Soulful Hunter. So, Brandon, give the listeners a little background on yourself, who you are, how did you end up working for Vortex Optics? Do you have a passion for hunting, shooting, what it is, and how how you ended up being who you are and where you are today?
Yeah, it's actually so it's kind of crazy. So, I was one of those guys in high school and growing up, like I just kind of I definitely wasn't the model student. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, didn't really have like a set path. When I graduated, I actually got into computer science. So I went to college for computer science. Sat behind a green and black screen at that time for about 2 semesters and just realized it wasn't for me. So, really just kind of got into a job out of college, worked for a sporting goods store. And my philosophy was always one of those things, just as long as I continue to climb, doesn't really matter what job I do. I just want to climb and just kind of keep moving up the ladder. And I bounced from a sporting goods retailer to a bank to an investment company, spent a summer working at Blockbuster, like really just kind of rolled with it. Um,
Yes, Blockbuster.
and then Oh yeah, dude, it was best summer. I spent the summer playing frisbee golf, and like it was, yeah, probably the best summer I had. Like it was one of those things. I'm glad I did it, but like ready to move on when I moved on. So at one point, I grew up in Wisconsin, and my family, my dad had taken a job with Cabela's out of their headquarters in Sydney, Nebraska. So I'd lived in the Appleton area here in Wisconsin, and my family moved out to Nebraska. I decided to stay here. I had friends, had all that going on. And then in about 2007, I just kind of needed a change, and I decided to move out to Nebraska, just kind of drop everything and head out and take a job with Cabela's, and actually got into Cabela's in logistics to get my foot in the door. And you had to be in a department for 6 months before you could transfer out of it. And I think I was in logistics for 5 months and 30 days before I put in my application for other areas. And I got into apparel. So I turned into a buyer for apparel at Cabela's, and actually ended up spending 8 years in the apparel department at Cabela's, working with some of the big national brands. I worked for the retail stores, so I'd set their assortments, work with product managers, find the gaps in the assortment, all that kind of stuff. And that's really like where my desire and my love for apparel took off. Um, Realized I kind of had a knack for it, had some really great mentors and some really great managers along the way that kind of helped guide me. And it was in 2015, and my wife and I say this was God led the whole time. 2015, we had a son. We have a son. He was 3 at the time, and he was missing grandma and grandpa, who lived back here in the Midwest yet. And I still remember we were driving home one day from Illinois back to Nebraska. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and he'd been asleep, and all of a sudden we hear like this like little sobbing from the back seat. We kind of turn around, we're like, what's wrong, buddy? And he's like, I miss grandma and grandpa.
Mm.
So that was kind of like the sign for us that it was time to come back home. So I started looking, and actually got a job with Duluth Trading Company back here, which is in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, same town we live in, and got a job for them as a business manager on the apparel side. And I was there for about 3 years, and out of the blue, Vortex contacted me, and they were like, "Hey, your name was passed along to us. We're looking to start an apparel line. We want to do something kind of just above caps and tees. Would you have an interest in starting something for us?" And truth be told, like I knew of Vortex. I didn't realize they were just right down the road at that time. But started doing a little bit more research and digging into a little bit and stuff, and it was just too good of an opportunity to pass. I mean, I'd heard stories about the culture. I'd heard stories about like the customer experience and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of the times things sound good, but you just really don't know how great they are until you get in there. I mean, I can tell you that everything I can't sing praises enough about the company, and not just because I work there, but I mean, it truly is one of those places where it's customer first, no matter what happens, no matter what we do. And it was just I couldn't pass it up. I had to go try it. And you want to talk about stepping out of your comfort zone. I mean, I had never led an apparel line before. I mean, so this was me coming on board to find vendors, find suppliers, set the framework, basically do everything from A to Z to get this apparel line going.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was very intimidating, and my wife and I had a lot of conversations about it. And it's like, okay, like I've got a good thing at Duluth. Things are going really good right now. Do we risk this? But like we said, God had led us here, and we just had too many good things happen and too many just fortunate things happen along the way to think that this wasn't going to be the same. So, yeah, it was June of 2018. I started Vortex to kind of get this apparel line going, and it's just been a roller coaster ever since, man.
Man, that's so cool. I do not believe in coincidences. I am a
No,
believer in that there is intention behind everything, whether you give credit to God or the universe or whatever it is. Like really, there is intention. We are created with intention, and so it's really amazing how when we surrender our our mentality of what we think we know or think we should do versus really trusting our heart or trying new
right?
things. Like if you only ate vanilla ice cream all your life, but there was always chocolate ice cream, you're like, I don't know, man. I only kind of like vanilla ice cream. It's like, well, you've never even tried it. How do you know you're not gonna just enjoy it? And
Yeah,
what else is gonna come out of that? So that's huge. Just backing up real quick on Duluth Trading Company, aren't they the ones
yeah.
that does all the underwear commercials? Or
They are the buck naked underwear people.
did you?
Yep.
Are you wearing Duluth underwear right now? You don't have to answer that. I'm just.
That's a fair question, man. Hold on. I am not. You caught me on a non-Duluth day. Um, but if we went down that road, I could tell you the crazy stories. I mean, literally, when traveling, I mean, if somebody found out we were with Duluth, we literally had like Uber drivers like pull their underwear out while they're driving to show us that they were. It's
People were giving
very, very
themselves
happy for
they
them.
were giving themselves atomic wedgies to show you like, hey man, check this out. Like, wow.
Some of the weirdest stuff, man. People were passionate about it. But you know what? Kudos to a brand that can drive a passion like that.
Heck yeah. And so building off of that, which I really love. So be, I've always been a shooter. Well, not always been a shooter. I was never taught gun safety. I was never taught any of this. And so, but I had this call upon my soul. I was like, well, I want to shoot. I want to hunt. I want this idea of a cowboy on a horse out on the western frontier and self-reliance and grit, determination, courage, all this stuff. I was like, that is what I want. And I also didn't know where to start. And so when I had a BB gun from a young age that I think I bought from lawn mowing money at a garage sale, and like I blew the barrel out of that thing because I shot it all the time, setting up GI Joes and little green army men in the backyard. And even if it was dumping rain, I was out there just like in my head, just pretending and playing like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter if it's raining because I'm super tough and I'm gonna have to endure through this. And that led me down to finally getting into shooting firearms and all this. And when it came to firearms, dude, I had no direction. I didn't understand the concept of optics and how that really plays a role. And so then I started getting into, um, hunting. And then I was like, I need to get my first pair of binoculars. My first pair
Yeah.
of binoculars I wanted to buy were going to be Vortex binoculars. I ended up buying Cabela's brand, and 6 months later sold those and ended up buying some Vortex razors because I realized, and this was once again, I was 30 years old. I wasn't like just some little kid at the time, that I was like, well, I guess maybe more like 31, 32 years old. This was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
that that
Not that long ago.
Yeah, so I'm telling the story like I jumped from 5 years old to like 32 real quick. Um, this idea is that I knew that you always get the quality out of what you pay. And
Mm,
so when I was like, okay, well, saw Vortex Razor binoculars, I was like, okay, that's what I want. And
Mhm.
I got tired of buying things multiple times in order to get to finally what I wanted. And I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm
Right.
gonna just save up and and get it done. And so that was my first like experience with Vortex. I think when did Vortex hit the market? Was this
It was 2002, more or less,
okay? So
like right around there,
yeah, so they've been around a lot longer than I've been aware of that.
which is kind of hard to believe that they've been around that long. But yeah,
Yeah, I guess that's what shoot almost 20 years almost
yeah,
getting close to
yeah.
that. So here I was like, oh, Vortex Optics, cool. And then, I ended up getting on social media and, I was hearing about this VIP warranty and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, that seems cool. And then everyone started copying Vortex with the VIP warranty. And I was like, oh,
Yep.
so they must be onto something. And then I ended up meeting a hunting partner, the trash man, Wes, and he had a Vortex hat and his dog just shredded it. And I was like, "Well, they say they have a VIP warranty. Why don't you put it on an Instagram story and tag them and be like, "Hey, will you warranty this?" And sure enough, the marketing department or whatever department it was responded and said, "Heck yeah, we will. Let us know your address and we'll send you out a new one." They sent him out a brand new hat and a Vortex branded dog toy for for him to chew on. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that right there is single-handedly the only thing that would make Vortex Optics better is if everything was made in America. Other than
Right.
that, as far as a quality of company is concerned, I feel like I'm almost Vortex for life. And granted, I this year have gotten into a lot more relationships with you guys. With that being said, there's a reason because there's so many optics companies out there that is like, who do you choose? Who do you want to go with? You guys are awesome. And now you guys are diving into apparel. It's like, dude, I want to be on board. I want to, and all you listeners, I want you to understand that yes, I am advocating and advertising for Vortex Optics on this podcast because I believe in their products. I also believe in their company. And when you do business with people, you're not just buying the product, you're going into a relationship with the people who sell it, who make it, and all that. And I have had more relationships bloom and blossom out of my interactions with Vortex than any other company. And I still like even a year ago, I'd reach out to other companies and I don't even get responses. I'm like, how does this work? You know?
Yeah.
So
No, I mean, so I remember when I was applying for the position, I was doing my homework on the company and looking at the website and reading everything. And one of the things that jumped out to me is that every company has like an about us page that you can go to, and it gives like the history of the company and everything like that. So as I'm reading the about us page for Vortex, nothing was about them. So as I'm going through reading this, I counted the word you over 20 times. Like, we're here for you. We're going to take care of you. We'll service you. Everything was about you, the customer. So that really caught my attention. Um, and what I can tell you is since I've come on board and I've started this role and 3 years in now, there are so many things that I've been encouraged to do by the company that no other place I have worked at would encourage me to do that because it may not make sense from like a profitability standpoint or it may not make sense from a business standpoint. I think one of the coolest things that I got to do was I had somebody write into me and they were like, "Hey, my uncle loves your clothing. Unfortunately, you don't carry his size. Nothing that you have is in his size. But just want to let you know that he loves your brand. You guys are a great company, et cetera, et cetera." So I went out and I had a couple of hoodies made in this guy's size that he needed, and we sent them to him at no charge, just
wow.
as a like, thanks for. And when I wanted to do it, it was not even a doubt. I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to get any questions, anything from any of my managers. Why I did this? Because again, it was just from day one, we're just told take care of the customer, and that's the VIP warranty. That's the response rates. That's like watching our Facebook pages and our social media pages. I mean, it truly is just about taking care of the customer at the end of the day. And I remember when I started there, I couldn't remember. I didn't know if the owners were on like some new crazy management method that they had just developed and like this thing was going to change the world, or if this is how business used to get done. And I feel like this is how people used to treat people. It truly is like treat people how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Um, and that is like every single day, like that's just what we do. And we have the freedom to do it and the ability to do it. And I really think that is the difference.
Yes, period. I totally agree. Because here's the thing is I'm gonna relate this to my truck. So I've always been a Toyota guy. My first car, not my first car. My first car I paid $500 for, and it ended up being an Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra that was my aunt and uncle's that I was able to
I had
buy
an
off.
Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme as my first car.
Yes, Oldsmobile Bros. So that was like my first car. But when I actually could work and make some money, I bought a 1988 Toyota 4Runner with like the removable top. Then I had a 98 4Runner. My wife still has a 2011 4Runner, and then eventually I got into a Tacoma because I was like, yes,
Okay.
that is like my dream truck, the same engine, same all this stuff. And then I started having children, and I was like, ooh, dude, I do not like having my knees touching the steering wheel when I have my children in the back. And so I upgraded to a full size truck, and I was like, okay, Tundra. And then I was like, well, what can I get from a Tundra versus American made, at the time at least? And so I ended up buying a Ford F-150. The
Okay.
most sold vehicle in America. I love my truck. However, is there's a reason why they call it fix or repair daily. And and so just literally I bought this truck brand new off the lot, and I don't ever buy brand new cars, but this was like, okay, we're buying this brand new because we have our kids. I don't want to have to worry about a car for a long time, all this stuff.
Yep.
So, and this is shoot like 3 years old now. So it rolls up about a month ago, and I go to take my kids to daycare. I walk out. It was below freezing at night. Put my kids in the car, shut the door, and it bounces back open. And I'm like, "What?" And I shut the door again, and it bounces back open. I'm trying to
Oh,
slam the door shut. I'm working on the locks. The car doors will not shut and stay shut. And I'm like, what's going on? And yeah, I did not buy an extended warranty because I also don't believe in the fact that you would have to buy an extended warranty for things that you just expect should work. Like there's a difference between wear and tear versus just malfunctions.
right.
So I get in, call local Ford dealerships. They're like, yeah, we're booked out because of COVID for like 4 weeks, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I literally can't drive my car and I can't take my kids to school. I can't get to work until these doors shut. And they're like, oh, yeah. And so I start Googling all this stuff. Turns out there's a class action lawsuit because
Oh,
the door locks freeze. And when moisture gets in, they freeze. Anyways, the long story short, the point is that if someone decided to enter the automobile industry and actually stand behind their product, someone was telling me they're like, well, they wouldn't make any money. They'd go out of business because no one would buy cars. I was like, no, I disagree. Everyone would be buying their car. And at what point do you have to continue
right.
making more cars to sell if you are just doing what you're doing and it takes care of itself?
Yeah.
Because when that one person has a car, then they're going to want to pass it down to their child, and then they'll get a new
Yeah.
one. And they're like, oh, that's a good point. The reason I bring this up is because you guys are that for the hunting and shooting industry. That is what Vortex is. And so, regardless of whether or not people say, oh, well, the glass isn't that good or whatever, and it's like, at the end of the day, you can buy whatever tier of quality you want, but what you're getting is a company that truly stands behind and cares about the end user rather than a company that makes their profits based off of the fixes in the maintenance
Yeah.
department.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's about the end user and making sure that they get a good experience. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I mean, regardless of which tier you buy of what you want to get into, whether it's just the entry level or if you're at the top level, we treat it all the same. I mean, it truly is just taking care of. If you're not happy, we want to know what we can do to make you happy. And that is, it's just being a good company. It's just, and it's really difficult to work for a company like this and then have an issue with another company. Like for instance, we had a faulty dishwasher and we had it for like 4 months before the thing just crapped out on us. Um, I can't tell you the amount of phone calls and hours on the phone and disconnected phone calls and everything I had just to basically get the runaround.
Yeah.
Um, and I think what makes it so tough is that you may realize who you're talking to can't make a decision, but there's somebody there who can make a decision to give you what you need to help you in the way that you need to make the situation right. Somebody there can do it. They're just not, it feels like. And that's what's tough coming from Vortex. It's like, we'll do whatever we have to do. Like, it's about you.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah,
yeah.
and let me I just got to say this because now I'm getting all fired up and jacked right now. Is the day that I finally got an appointment to take my truck in to fix those door locks, I went to open my sunroof and the sunroof broke and I was like, "Oh!" And so I show up and I'm like, "Yeah, my door locks aren't working and my sunroof isn't working." He's like, "Oh, yeah. Yeah, they use plastic for that part and it breaks all the time. They ended up remanufacturing it and making it a metal piece, which I'm not sure why they didn't do that in the first place. And so I know it's an easy fix, yada yada, but we're gonna have to order that part and we're gonna have to schedule you out, a couple more weeks." And literally, I picked up my truck today from Ford with the sunroof finally working, and I'm like,
Jeez.
"Oh, baby." Needless to say, let's get back on track with Vortex. I do want to give a huge shout out to Ben Phillips. Ben Phillips in I guess I don't know exactly what department he works. He works in he fixes. He's in the warranty department. And
Yep. Yeah, the repair. Yep.
he's a savage. He is another person who at your company, dude, I'm truly humbled by the quality of individuals your company hires. I met him once again at the Hunt Expo last year, and I've had a
Yep.
relationship with him. We text often, we'll talk on the phone, we'll chat. And it's just so awesome that it's like, yes, dude, this is what separates Vortex from anyone else. And Ben, if you're listening, when you listen to this, brother, I love you. I'm so honored that you're in my life, and I can't wait to connect with you in person once again. So, with that being said, let's go to the concept of what you've done with Vortex Wear. Because
Yeah,
this year in 2021 is a heavy push for the clothing line. And I'm
it
sure
is.
you guys have a lot more in the plans in the future and all this, but tell all the listeners about why Vortex Wear is special. Should they shop at Vortex for clothing rather than going to Cabela's, to Bass Pro, to Shields, to, I mean, whatever you want to call it. I love to support companies that I love. And if your clothings are going to market a company, I love to market the companies that support me and what I do as well. So I know why I wear Vortex Wear, but why should all the listeners also, and I got to be careful. I don't like using the word should. Why could all the listeners use some Vortex Wear in their life?
No, absolutely. So when I came on board, it was really finding that white space. It was really taking a look at just the market, and it's like, okay, where can we make an impact the same way that we made an impact in the optics market? So when we took a look around and we just looked at every brand out there and we really like analyzed it, um, we kind of found that you had either your really great technical hunting wear, some really great stuff. There's some great brands out there that, it was about comfort and stretch, and it gave you technology and the fabrics and the fit and everything like that. It was really great. And I would say for the average consumer, you're going to be in that stuff maybe 5, 6 times a year. You're not going to be in that a lot. I mean, that is truly for when you're hunting as much as all of us would love to be out doing that for a living and have that be our job, it's just not the case for a lot of us. So you're in that, a couple of days a year. And on the flip side of that, if we look at like the casual clothing, and specifically the brands that are talking to like the hunter shooter, like who are the brands that are actually like resonating and like, I don't want to say like on board with the hunter shooter, but it just felt like there were so many apparel brands out there distancing from hunting and shooting a little bit, didn't want to kind of take a stance in that market. So people that were truly speaking to those, yeah, unless your job was like breaching doors or you didn't mind walking around like a one-man strike team,
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't a lot of casual clothing out there. It was kind of like ill-fitting, it was boxy. You didn't really have a lot of like the tech fabrics and the stuff like that. So that's really where we felt like we had a space to kind of like go in there. It's like, okay, how do we provide really great clothing that gives you all those technical outdoor features, whether it's UPF protection, if it's antimicrobial, if it's wicking, if it's stain release, whatever it is. How do you get those great things, but how do you do it in a way that you can incorporate it into your daily life?
Yeah.
So whether I'm on the job site or I'm in the office or I'm hanging out with the kids, like whatever I'm doing, how can I still have like good fitting, comfortable clothing that if I want to go down to the range on my lunch hour and I want to shoot for a while and I got to pop back to work, how can I do it and do it seamlessly? And that's really where we wanted to focus. And that's really kind of where we launched Spring 20 was finding some of those styles that fit both those worlds. And our tagline is fit for everywhere. And truly, like whenever we develop any new style, when we're looking at fabrics, we're doing anything, that's the mantra we hold. Is it fit for everywhere? Could I go do something outdoors in this? Could I go hang a ladder stand? Could I go shoot lane? Could I go cut some lanes? Can I do something like that? But then can I wear this out to dinner and still look fine? And as simple of a concept it seems, like it just wasn't out there. So that's truly what we're doing with this whole thing is we want to give you clothing that it's the quality you expect. We want to do it for a fair price, and we want to make sure that you can live your life and you can do the things you enjoy outdoors and you can do the things you like to do without having to worry about what you're going to wear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is really what it comes down to. And there's a lot of brands in our space, I would say, that will go buy a polo or they'll go buy something from a third party manufacturer, on the West Coast, East Coast, wherever it might be. They'll put their logo on the chest and now they say they do apparel, and that's unfortunately like, no, in my opinion, like, no, that's not doing apparel. That's logo wear, it's swag, it's a great way to advertise and market your brand, but you're not actually doing apparel. I mean, we're building our apparel the same way like North Face, Columbia, Under Armour, like all those big guys. Like we're doing ours the same way. We're picking the fabrics, we're doing the tech packs. If we know that we want a shirt for shooting, well, we're going to incorporate the tech we want into that shirt for shooting. And we're going to put the seams where the seams need to be. We're going to put the gussets where the gussets need to be. And we're going to make it so that it's comfortable and that's going to function for you. And that's a luxury that we have because we're building this from the ground up.
Yeah. That is awesome. And at the same time, so I'm a PE teacher. And so I see like the polo and I'm like, "Oh, dude, I wear polos to work. This is a great item that I would love to wear." And at the same time, being a school teacher, I can't just rock everything that has like guns on it and stuff like that, because
Right.
well, sadly, I should be able to do that because it is a part of the Constitution, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, that and the education of firearms would be extremely beneficial for everyone. With that being said, uh, I'm like, oh, dude, that's a great polo. I'd love to buy that. Or you guys just on this last spring edition relaunch this at the beginning of this month, you this windbreaker rain jacket. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, dude. Last year when I was training for my ultra marathon and I was running 20 to 30 miles a day on the weekends in snow and rain, and I'm like, I really could go for a waterproof jacket, but at the time I only had like heavy rain gear, and I'm like, I'm not gonna run in that because I'm gonna just die.
You're
And
training like Helly Hansen, you're just like sweating inside of it.
yes, dude, and so what I ended up doing is I used to work at REI. I used to sell a bunch
Oh,
of, gear there, and so I had a discount with an industry discount for North Face, and so I bought a bunch of, like, their athletic, um I don't even know, athletic gear more or less.
yep.
And so I was like, okay, well, I'll put this on and it's going to soak up the rain, but at least I'm going to be warm. And so I just like take off and I was like, man, I could really go for a windbreaker right now that is going to keep the rain and snow off of me. And then here you are, you come out with it. And I'm like, thanks a lot, Brandon. Where were you last year, dude?
I didn't tell you to be so motivated last year. That was on you.
Well, the funny thing is that weeks before my ultra marathon was going to happen, the state shut down because of Corona, and I was like, "No!" I mean, I literally uh, ran. Let's see here, upwhere to like 800 miles
Oh,
within a couple months in preparation for my 100-mile race. To have it just canceled, and they're like, "Well, you can do it again next year," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't understand. It took a lot of time to dedicate to this, and I have other goals I want to achieve also." And so needless to say, it came and it's gone this year, and I did not
uh,
participate. And maybe when I'm 40, I'll run an ultra marathon again when my kids are a little older. So that's one of the most favorite pieces of gear that you guys have come out with this year that I truly love. And I'm actually wearing, being a PE teacher and someone who exercises, your running shorts. What are those things called? Um,
those are the free run
The
athletic short.
yes, the free run
Yeah.
shorts, dude, money. Because what I do not like, being a PE teacher, I'm always wearing like Nike shorts or Adidas, like the typical sports
Yeah.
brand shorts. And I don't I don't want to support these companies anymore if they don't really care to support the people. And so I'm like, well, where's my interest lie? Well, my interest lies in the outdoors. Hey, let's start rocking gear that I also support and they support us. And it goes hand in hand because the whole concept and what I talk about on this podcast is you can't outgive good. When you lead with intention of a kind heart, with love, with care, you can't outgive good. You don't give good for the result. You give good because that is the beauty in which we have in humanity is that we are kind, we're loving, and through that, things naturally come back. And I had a buddy in South Carolina reach out to me Monday morning, and he was like, "Hey, it's been a while. I just want to check in on you. How are you doing?" And I needed that. There was some stuff going on in my life this week that I was like, "Thank you for checking in with me." I checked in back with him and I was like, "Hey, what's happening? I hear you and my brother, ironically, are launching a course." And and they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, when is it launching?" And he's like, "Oh, it's launching May 5th." And I was like, "You want to advertise it?" And he's like, "What?" I was like, "Let's get you on a podcast right now today." He's like, "Yes." And
That's so
that
awesome.
him being good and showing kindness in this world, however simple it was, allowed me also to bless him in his
Yeah.
endeavors, and it created space for all of us to then have our cups filled because I wouldn't have known about his endeavor until he reached out to me. I also got to bless him, but he blessed it, and it's a circle of life. It just, you can't outgive
Yeah.
good. And so it just goes back to what you guys are doing.
Well, and I think, that kind of goes back to just like what we, said earlier when this all kind of started. Like, I don't, I used to, but I don't believe in coincidence anymore.
Yeah.
I don't believe that things just happen because they happen. I've seen too many good things and I've seen too many just incredible things that I can just chalk it up to coincidence. And I think, with intention and a good heart and just great things happen. Great things happen to good people. And it's about being a good person. And yeah, I mean, I can't simplify it more than that. I mean, it really just comes down to being a good person. And again, him checking in on you, I don't believe like you just crossed his mind on accident that day. there was, in my opinion, in my beliefs, it was God. Like, hey, J Mac needs to hear from you this morning. Reach out to him, see how he's doing.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things. Like, and he did. He listened with his heart, and he reached out of genuine interest. He didn't expect to get on the podcast. He didn't expect anything in return. It was just being a good person, checking on our fellow brother, and that's what life should be about.
So let's talk about that for a second because I think that is something that people miss. And I'm going to be very vulnerable and share an experience in my life that happened 2 years ago that shook me to my core. And what I had to learn, and the listeners, I want you to truly reflect upon this because you can gain a lot from what I'm about to share. Not because I know everything, but experiences always trump opinions. When you experience something, you know firsthand the result, the power, anything. So, growing up, I never listened to my inner voice. Whether it's God, people say it's God talking to you, or the energy of the world like vibrating and you resonating with that vibration. I mean, there's however you want to call it. I didn't listen to my inner voice. And I remember I was in 4th grade riding in the back seat of an extended cab pickup truck. So, like where you're a little kid and that tiny little window and that bench, that seat that pops down from the side. And I'm just squished back there on my way to a basketball game. And in my head, I'm like, man, I wonder what it's like to get in a car accident. And once again, I don't believe in coincidences. Now, I've also reached that conclusion as an adult within the last couple of years. However, when I reflect upon my life, because inward reflection leads to outward correction, literally no less than a minute later, we got in a car accident. And I was like, holy smokes, I was just thinking about that. So fast forward until just a couple years ago in my life, and I'm at a leadership training, emotional intelligence course down in San Diego that I've invested a lot of money in for myself because I want to improve. We are the greatest gift that we have, and if we don't invest in ourselves, then what's the point in investing in others? Because you can't give what you don't have. And so if you build yourself up, then you're going to be a lot better for everyone else. So I'm at this course, and I had to fly down to San Diego multiple weekends in a row. Like it literally cost me thousands of dollars, not only to sign up for the course, but airline flights and hotels and all this stuff. And I'm in this experience, and where a person is portraying, they're talking through the wounds and the trauma of that person's life. And to go deeper within this, I guess role play is what I'll call it. I wouldn't really call it a role play per se, but I ended up, one of the leaders grabbed me and had me stand in place as the representation of the person that hurt this other person when they were a child. Now, I didn't know what was going on in that circumstance. I didn't know the history or anything, but I stood there and you could see him just getting really pissed. And it turns out that I was the representation of a man that sexually molested this other man as a child. And so,
Wow.
and so in my heart, I'm like, man, this is not really a safe environment for me as an individual.
Yeah.
I want other people to be set free and to overcome their trauma and their past experiences. And once again, if you don't take care of yourself, you're no good for anyone else. And so I'm standing there and I'm like, oh, this is kind of dangerous. And then they're like, hey, turn around. And I turned my back to him as a representation of that person shunning that child, because little kids just want to be loved and accepted. And yet here's this person that is just doing horrible things to this other person. And then they're like, okay, now walk away like 10 steps. And granted, it's not like the three of us are in this room. There's probably 80 different people in this expo room doing these different exercises. And I already went through it myself. And so I turn my back and I'm like, this is not good. My inner voice is saying, this is not good. This is not good. Listen to yourself. And before I knew it, the guy closed the distance on me and grabbed me from behind and started choking me out.
Whoa.
Yes, like talk about major lawsuit because, well, for multiple reasons in that regards. And
Lots of reasons.
yeah, lots of reasons that we don't even have to, like, maybe self-explanatory, we don't even have to get into. So I quickly did what I did to get out of the headlock, which I'm really proud of myself for that situation. And uh, I turned around and you could just see his eyes were just blood red. And he didn't view me as me. He viewed me as
Right.
the attacker and the perpetrator in his life. The point of that story is
Cool.
I need and we need as humanity to listen to our inner voice and don't just shrug it off as, that's not real. That's just something else. It's like, no, our intuition, our gut instincts are real and there are no coincidences. And so, therefore, start to get in tune with yourself. Like, if you don't listen to yourself,
Yeah.
why does anyone else need to listen to you?
Right. And I think, when you can slow down and actually listen to yourself and actually give some value to that voice, because I think we're so quick to dismiss that voice. When you give some value to that voice and then you can reflect. So if you can, if you're hearing to do one thing in a situation and you do something else and you have the ability to just slow down and reflect later on what that voice originally said, at least in my case, that voice is almost always right. That voice always told me to do the right thing, but then I did what I thought I should do. And I did 9 times out of 10, that is a mistake.
Yeah, well, at being a school teacher, I always tell students this: your gut instinct when answering a question on a test is more than likely always correct. So go with your first instinct of what answer if you're doing a multiple choice test, because there's a
Yeah.
reason why you're already leaning that direction. Then don't second guess yourself and be like, okay, I'm going with C. When you knew it was A all
Yep.
along and you should have marked A, but you didn't because you didn't listen to yourself. So it's real fascinating, really fascinating. Brandon, how long have you been hunting?
So I have been hunting since I was 12. So I remember in Wisconsin, my dad took me through hunter safety. And I think 12 was the first time that I could hunt on my own. So yeah, did hunter safety and I actually remember the morning going out into the woods with my dad. We were probably 10 minutes from our land. And this was a super short drive. And I remember, I had all my snacks. It's all about the snacks. I had my sandwiches. I had like my Reese's peanut butter cups. I had my beef sticks. I was stacked, ready to go to the woods. And I I remember I'd made a sandwich, and actually started eating the sandwich in the truck on the way out to the stand. And my dad just looks at me and he starts laughing and he goes, "This is the day that I've been waiting for all my life."
Yes.
And it was that moment that he was like taking his son out in the woods to hunt for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
cool.
then because that was the first time I hunted, but then, I got my first BB gun when I was probably 7. My grandparents owned a hardware store, small town, 1,200 people. They had the local hardware store. It was an old building. Downstairs, it was an old dirt floor cellar and stuff like that. And I remember my grandpa pulled a BB gun off the shelf for me. Still have it in the closet. My son shoots it. Still has the original price tag on it. It's a Daisy BB gun. He would take me down to the basement and he would set up cardboard targets and he taught me about gun safety. Always have the safety on, make sure you watch your point the barrel. Like at 7 years old, like, and that's probably like one of my best memories is just like my grandpa walking through that with me. And I've actually got to see my grandpa do it with my son, which is also just the coolest thing. I mean, it's his favorite thing to grab the BB gun and drive 3 hours up north to go to my grandpa's house and just go out in the backyard, just shoot the BB gun.
Dude, that's so cool. Legacy. That's powerful. I did not grow up in a family like that, and I don't have regrets at all because life happens the way it's supposed to happen. Once again, there's no coincidences. And with that, I also know what I get to deliver for my own children and for, for the future. And that's so cool. So have you, is hunting like like for me, hunting has transformed my life to the point where I started this podcast. I started my platform of mentorship as conservation.
Yeah.
We're doing all these different things. So like, what is hunting for you?
Quite honestly, for me, I don't do as much of it as I'd like to. Um, I can always find an excuse, whether it's family or things to do, so I don't do it as much as I would like. But for me, it's really about providing for my family. I've never been one for the mounts on the wall and the trophies and the stuff like that. But man, if I can fill the freezer with venison, and I know it's clean food, I know it's good food, I know that I harvested it, to be able to give thanks for that animal's life, for that food. I mean, for me, like that's the biggest thing. It's being able to go out and just provide in that way. Because I think there's something primitive. There's something primitive. There's something primal about that. It's taking care of the people that you love, and that's a way. Like as a man of the family, like I can do that.
Yeah.
And that's like something like when I talk about it, when I can feel it like in here. Like when I talk about how that makes me feel, like I can feel that in my chest.
Yes. Yes.
And that's for me, that's like the biggest thing.
And that's why I talk about it being so life transformative because of that. There are some things that words can't describe. And this is why
Yeah.
I'm so huge on experiences is that opinions only go so far, but the minute that you allow somebody and you provide the opportunity for someone to experience it, whether or not they choose to pursue it, they are now going to be transformed and they'll definitely think twice when it comes to legislation that impacts gun laws or it impacts hunting laws and all these different things. And it's like, once again, you go back and return to loving people and
Yeah.
investing in other people, and this world ends up being a better place. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want
Yeah.
to see in the world.
Yeah. And it's absolutely true. And I've had some really great people in my life that have shown me that. And, I've had some people in my life who haven't shown me that. But, the people that I look at that really are kind people with good hearts that pay it forward and truly just care about the genuine well-being of other people, you see that come back to them.
Yeah.
Like you do see that gift given back to them, and it truly does just give and give and give.
Because you can't outgive good, baby. Bam! We
Right?
are just knocking it out of the park
Doesn't
tonight.
just set you up for that one.
I freaking love it. That is awesome. Okay, so maybe you're a good person to answer this question, but Vortex
Yeah.
just launched Vortex Edge.
Yeah. Oh
Can,
man.
can you talk about it?
I mean, I can tell you what I know. I mean, so again, being on the apparel side, like, I don't have a ton of know-how about it, but man, as far as just experiences and ranges go, I mean, I've never seen anything like this place. And again, so it's one of those where when I came on board 3 years ago, they had just finished building the building. I think they just moved in like January of 18, and I came in June of 18. So the range was still fairly new. Um, but as they were doing classes and stuff like that, and I got to tell you, like a majority of what they do down there or what they have done is they just open up the doors for law enforcement, local law enforcement to come in and train, because you know weather, lighting. There's so many obstacles to training. So Edge took away like all those obstacles. So I mean, it was open to law enforcement. They'd come down, they'd practice. Just again, it's taking care of the community. I mean, it was really like just opening up the doors to any of those agencies that needed to come in. So, anyways, between the ranges and just the state of the art, I'm like at a loss for words. Like, if you haven't checked out the website, go check out the website. I mean, there's stuff down there that there's a 270-degree simulator that is so lifelike. So I got the chance to go shoot down there a couple of weeks ago. We had a grand opening, and in the simulator, you're using real guns, but they've got CO2 cartridges, so you get the kick, you get everything like that. I mean, they can set up the simulators so that you've got targets at different ranges. They control the lighting in the room. So you can actually be shooting in a lightning storm with rain coming down and squad lights flashing around you at the same time. So every single distraction that you could have to really hone those skills of shooting. So there's that. There's a shoot house where they can adjust all the different walls. So they can have a team come in and practice clearing rooms. And then you could reconfigure the whole room within like an hour. And now you have a whole new place to do it in. There's catwalks above, so like people can observe and watch. And that's not to mention the ranges then. You've got a 25, a 50, a couple 50s, I think, two. There's a 100-yard indoor range. And like I think, what is it? Don't quote me on this because I'm not 100%, but I think the HVAC system in the 100-yard range can clear the air like in 3 minutes or 4 minutes.
Wow. So you can really go
So,
to town and be
oh
be
man,
good.
you could just open up down there, and I mean, it's fine. It's yeah.
That that's so cool.
But there's
I'm on the website right now, and so
yeah,
for all listeners, Vortex Edge are classes that you can take. So they offer
yeah,
precision rifle courses, so that's like long range distance shooting, carbine courses, pistol courses, hunting and outdoor style shooting classes. Brandon was talking about tactics, and then military law enforcement classes. And these are all things that you, as a civilian or the everyday Joe, can sign up for, whether
yeah,
or not you live in Wisconsin. Dude, this what is it? It's a half hour from the airport. It doesn't
yeah.
take that
But
long to
about an hour. It's not too bad. Yeah, we're like about 40 minutes west of Madison, so it's not bad at all.
boom.
No,
So it was like, okay, here we go. Let's take care of all of our people and really give back. This is what one of the things I love about Vortex. They actually stand behind this concept of the next generation, the mentorship.
yeah,
Because I told Mark Boardman on a podcast we recorded last year, I was like, I listen, Mark, I'm gonna lay it to you straight. I don't understand why you don't put in a little tag or a flyer or something with every optic you sell that says, don't forget to take someone hunting, don't forget to take someone shooting,
yeah,
don't forget to teach somebody, because mentorship is conservation. And if you want hunting and shooting to last for generations to come, you have to invest in people, because at
yeah,
the end of the day, bird watchers are not going to keep Vortex Optics alive. And no offense to bird watchers, I think they're phenomenal, and hunting is way
man,
better.
that's how we started. I mean, that was the root of the company.
Yeah,
Um, Yeah, I mean, no, and again, though, it's whether you're just observing nature and you're out just being one with it, or if you're out actively hunting, like whatever it is, like we all have a piece of it. Like we all have a home in it. We all have a role in it. I think that's the other great thing about the outdoors, man. It is open to everybody.
yes,
There's nobody that cannot participate in the outdoors in some fashion.
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Totally. Well, just for the sake of time and wrapping this bad boy up,
yeah,
what do we have? What do all the listeners have to look forward to with Vortex Wear and the product lines that you're going to be launching for the summer, or in the future? And what's the best way for them to get in contact, whether or not you guys are in stock? Because I noticed that as soon as a lot of stuff launched, there's a lot of people that are buying your products and you're selling out of things. And I don't know if that's because of the way the country's been shut down for so long, and it's hard to keep inventory, because you're not the only company that I've noticed is having some inventory issues.
yeah.
But is that also speaking because your guys' products kick butt and they're selling?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, like from an inventory perspective, we've had a pretty good year. I mean, we really haven't struggled to get anything for inventory. It just truly is when it goes in, it goes out, and super super blessed that that's something that we're going through. It's unfortunate because again, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the customer has the best experience. And on the website, if we're out of stock, like that's not good for anybody. And we're doing things to help combat that going forward. But we have usually about two big launches a year. We'll do like a spring launch in March, and then we'll do a fall launch in September with the new goods and stuff like that. So this spring, we launched the new Weekend Record collection, which was actually the one I've got on, which isn't. It's actually just a coincidence.
I was
So
wearing
when I
that
got home,
yesterday when I went for
for
a
you,
run. Yep.
so when I got home tonight, and this kind of goes back to like we want to build things that are comfortable, and that if it's clean in your closet, you're going to grab it. And I think I bypassed 3 or 4 shirts tonight when I was coming home to change to get to this one. So Weekend Record was our big launch for the spring. Big talking point behind that one was stain release. So we wanted something that was an active stain release program. So, when we were testing this thing last summer, I got fish blood and guts on it. I basically used it as like a wipe rag when I took my son fishing. We had a guy who was out spray painting steel targets, got spray paint on it. It all comes out in the wash. And again, that just goes back to like, we want you to go outside, do the things you love, and not have to worry about what your clothes are going to look like. So, Weekend
Sweet.
Record was the one. We're working on some really cool stuff for fall. We always say nothing's off the table. So there's nothing that we're saying we're not going to do yet. We definitely want to be diligent about what we do. We want to make sure it makes sense. What we don't want to turn into is just slapping our logo on something for the sake of slapping our logo on it, because that doesn't help anybody. That's not a good customer experience. Um, there's not a long term benefit there for the customer if we do that. So being very diligent about how we work through stuff. We're already working on fall 22. So, we're working 2 years in advance that we can test this stuff and that we make sure that we're putting good product out on the market.
That's awesome.
I think the other big call out too is, so on the website, we've got free shipping on our apparel all the time, and all of our apparel has the VIP warranty. So we will take back the apparel no matter what. We have the same warranty on our apparel as we do our optics. So for somebody to just give it a shot and try it, there's absolutely zero risk. I mean, there's none. Like, we're confident that you're going to like it, but if you don't, hey, we understand. But at the end of the day, we're going to take care of you whether you like it or not.
Yes. I love that.
And I think that's the big thing too.
I love that. And how many clothing companies can can say that? Because there's been a lot of times where I'm like, "Oh man, I really wish I didn't purchase this, and now I can't return it." Or
Yeah, it's
um,
like it's a 30-day return window when you're on day 31. It's like, oh, done, can't do it anymore. Like, no, like that's not how it should be. It's, again, it just goes back to just be good.
yeah, be good, do good, act good, say
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
And
totally.
yeah, no, again, like, I feel super blessed just to be with Vortex. They truly do. They walk the walk and they talk the talk. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about just taking care of people,
Yeah,
and whether that's a customer or whether that's somebody who just came in off the street and they have questions, like whatever it is, like, just be good and help people.
oh man, I love that. I love that. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and sharing your story and diving into these topics because, you know, you all, when people get vulnerable and they share their experience, I was just having a conversation today with a buddy of mine, Dennis, who reached out to Washington Backcountry and wanted to get involved with the mentorship aspect, but he was like, I don't know where I can go with this, but this is what I can offer. And I was like, dude, he was telling me about the struggle he's had. He's former military, so he's a veteran, and I think he's dealing with some stuff in regards to that. And he was sharing with this to me, and I was like, dude, you need to write this down as a story because when we create space, when we are courageous enough to share our story, it creates space for others to then also join us in our journey and to say, "Hey, I'm also experiencing this in life." And
Yeah,
and that is where the power in numbers come from. It only takes one to start and then everything else falls. So
yeah,
it's
100%.
beautiful, beautiful. I really appreciate it, buddy. You did a phenomenal job. I would love to have you on for another episode. I do want to do a shout out right here and say if you are interested in buying any Vortex Aware clothing, you can use the code WBC. And that's capital WBC 20, and you can save 20% on all Vortex apparel, and that is good until it's not good, which
Definitely.
which I hope it's always good. I actually literally, while we're here, I'm like, dude, I love your gear, but I need to put my kids in some clothing. And so I went to your kids section, and the red, white, and blue American flag Vortex logo. I'm like, yes, okay, I'm getting that for my children. And this summer on a road trip, we'll be rocking the Vortex swag. So.
Love it, man.
WBC20, use it, save 20% on your Vortex wear. And yes, this is a plug for Vortex because I truly believe in them and support them. So, and everyone, go support Vortex Optics because they also support you and will take care of you to the bitter end. Be blessed, everyone. As always, freedom on and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.